Welcome to day 3 of the 30-day challenge between myself and Roger Grimes from at Showdown1197. This is his YouTube handle. Go check out his channel or just look through my playlist and you can find him, see our videos, and see up to here. So the first day I did a little boxing, second day I did a little bit with legs. Today I want to take a little time to just play with some weapons and work. I know that I said that I wouldn't be playing with too many toys that most people wouldn't have at home. So I do want to point out that all these exercises can be done with nothing more than any type of stick, dowel, broom. In fact, that's what I'm going to be using today because my staff, you can't see here, is 6 foot long, but I don't have enough space in this room to work with a 6 foot staff today. So instead, I'll be taking in just a standard broom and unscrewing the handle, and that's what I'm going to use. So the first technique I'm going to teach you is actually a sword technique, but we'll do it with a staff, and I'll show you the one-handed and the two-handed version of it so that you can do it either with a long weapon or a short weapon. Long weapons generally consist of things like the spear, the staff, possibly a spade or the pudao, whereas short weapons are generally swords, knives, clubs, that sort of thing. Anyways, so I want to look at a crosscut. Let me grab a couple of different types of swords here. Two main swords I use are the straight sword and the broadsword. With a straight sword, there is a specific sword hand that you're supposed to stay in. So most people grasp the sword, use one finger to wrap around, and use the other. A lot of people actually go over the guard, which is fine. What we're learning here is a crosscut. So you're just going to extend your arm out, and as you extend it out, you then extend the wrist, and this handle will hit your forearm, and the friction of hitting your forearm is what will stop the strike. So it's basically just flicking the wrist while extending the arm. So we're going to go ahead and do that 10 times. Just go 1, 2. I'm sorry, we said we do it with a stick. Technique doesn't change at all. Use that sword hand, use your grasp, leave yourself comfortable distance. You don't want to go and hit yourself every time. So you want to leave enough room to let your forearm stop it if you practice with the smaller stick. Okay. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You may be thinking, okay, that's the straight sword. If we move to the broadsword, it's got a different handle on it, more of a full hand guard, so the whole hand is kept back behind the guard. And you're usually just doing what they call a tiger claw grip, grabbing it with a tiger claw, or reverse tiger claw grip, same thing, just upside down. Right, but the technique is the same. Go out, flick the wrist. Won't quite get as much because you're not held up on it, but the principle is the same. So let's just go ahead and do 3 more with it. If you have something else, use it. Use a heavier stick, use a different length stick. I really recommend getting used to handling a bunch of different objects because you're obviously not going to carry this with you anywhere, but that motion can be used with a bat, it can be used with a stick, it can be used with a golf club, it can be used with just about anything. So it's helpful to be able to move from one thing to another without too much confusion. Alright, 1, 2, and 3. Other side. 1, like I just did the sword hand grip. 2, and 3. Okay, so what about a long weapon? We've got the side chop with both of these. Whenever I do a side strike, I think of it a lot like the general knife hand from karate, which you'll see in traditional martial arts. If you were to look at Heian Shodan, that would be the end of it. Knife hand to the side, knife hand at a 45-degree angle. And that gives you that same strike motion, but you don't flick the wrist because you've got a solid object and you're pulling and using the other side to gain leverage and power. Usually when I do this in wushu, instead of it being a knife hand chop at a 45, it's the same motion, but it's a straight horizontal chop. So here. So all I'm going to do is start with your right hand, put it part of the way at the stick, left hand down the stick, and this one's easier to work with something a little bit longer. 4 foot's a little short, but it'll work. So I want to put it on the side of your hip here, point that forward. I want to be striking that way. I want to let this hand just guide back to the hip as the other hand strikes straight out. So think of, this might be why you could chamber to the solar plexus, is because if you're holding a weapon, that's about where your hand will land, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Other side. To stop this one, I like to hit the side of my body and let the body stop the technique. 1, 2. It shouldn't hurt. You should be close enough to your body that you don't damage yourself. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so that's a cross cut or a side strike. Next, let's look at downward strikes. With the staff, there's the straight downward strike that's used a lot, and there's the slap smash where you go all the way down to the ground. If you're going to work a slap smash, make sure you get a stick that can bend. If you're using a hardwood that doesn't have much bend, it's going to break on you. It will. I've broken many staffs learning wushu staff because I didn't know at the time that I needed a certain one. I just picked up any stick, and I think the most embarrassing one, I was doing a demonstration in the middle of a movie theater, and I went down, hit the stick, and it broke in half, and luckily I was able to stand up and catch the other half and pretend I was working double sticks instead, but I did have to improv because of my lack of knowledge in that case. So make sure you're using the right stick. Hard style sticks, they're great if you do techniques where you're jumping up, putting a lot of weight on the staff, and they need to hold you up. Obviously you don't want something like bamboo or rattan because it's going to bend on you, it's not going to support you. But if you're doing a lot of hitting the ground where you go down and put tension on it, if it can't bend, then it will snap. So there you're going to want something like bamboo or rattan. Northern wushu usually uses white lotus wood, but that can be harder to find. Anyways, let's move on and do just a downward strike. So basically looks just like a hammer fist. If you were to look at Heian Shodan out of Shotokan Karate, pretty much the same thing. Come around, come down. I'm just not coming around, I'm coming straight down. And the other hand is working like most martial arts with the chamber back to the hip, right? So let's do 10 of those real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Other side. And it's good to practice making that parallel for forms. I'm real bad to just strike down and have a little bit of tilt up or down. But for forms, if you want to win a tournament and that sort of thing, you really want that parallel look straight across. Straight lines just look better. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so what if we move that over to a sword? You know, the broadsword, obviously we're not going to use both hands. I mean, sometimes we do, especially if it's a longer handle or a 9-ring broadsword. But we're just going to use one hand, obviously. Fling down, let the wrist stop it. You're not doing anything different from the side except for you're moving down instead. Wushu techniques do a lot of posing. I want to step up. You can't see my palm, but it is straight up, pushing overhead. So that's what we want to come around, push the palm up, strike the sword down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Other side. 1, 2, 3. It's not very straight. I'll let it tilt. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and there's only thing different if you want to do it with a straight sword instead is the hands position. Make sure you use that sword hand, and when you're working straight sword, your defending hand is supposed to be in that position as well. If you strike, you point with the sword hand. Before you go, you keep it in the sword hand. So whenever you go up, you would go up in a sword hand instead of a palm. I won't make you do it again. That way we can cover a little bit more material because I'm on a time crunch today. So let's look at the famous figure 8 spins, and we'll end off with that today because they're just fun to look at. I mean, my favorite combos are the figure 8s, moving into a body turn with a tuck, and then some sort of, a tornado kick, aerial, something after. It's always been one of my favorites. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to use that tiger claw grip with both hands at first. With this my left hand, I don't do a tight grip. I just use it loose because it's just controlling the stick. It's never really holding the stick. Right hand does all of the work whenever I do this. So the first thing I do is on the right side of my body, I take the top of the stick and I tuck it behind me. So look at that from the front. It would just be let it fall down and fall behind you, right? Just like that. But I use this other hand as a guide while I'm doing it. Starts up, makes a full 360 rotation, but now it's behind my shoulder instead of in front of my shoulder. Once it's behind my shoulder, I turn my body slightly, which is why I don't really like doing this in a square stance. Easier to do in a bow stance. Once it's up here, I just turn my body enough to get it past my knee. That's the most common mistake I see, is people do not clear the knee and they come around and they whack themselves right there. Once you turn the body, well, just start spinning the stick again. I see this is on bottom. I spin it until it's behind me, on top, and then I turn and bring the stick back, right? So right hand tucks under, turns, does a strike, comes back, blocking the outside to where it was. With the left hand, does a full turn. I turn my body, basically do an overhead strike, guiding with the left hand, guard the outside of my body, and then I'm back to my starting position. So it's 1, 2, 3. Or at least that's how I do mine. Whenever you turn here, that'll come up under to let you turn your body there. Alright, so I'm going to turn this way. Let's do that 3 times. We'll do one, or spin. 1. Turn this way. 2. Turn this way. And 3. And that's all there is to that. So let's do it just quickly for a second and see what it looks like. I'll turn this way. And like I said, you can take one hand away and do it with just one hand. Sometimes I like to do that just to work that wrist motion. And then once you bring the other hand in with that guide, all that does is help speed it up to give you a little bit more power. You'll know you're doing it right later on if you can turn and instantly reverse the rotation. But that lesson's for another day. Let's move on to the sword. In the sword, rather than a figure eight, a lot of times it's called a flower. And it's pretty much the same thing. Circle on the outside of the wrist, and you can circle just on the outside of the wrist and do wrist rotations that way. If you want to get a little more flair to it, after you circle on the outside of the wrist, circle to the inside of the wrist. So you get a bit more flair again. And then if you want to go a little bit further with it, you can actually tuck it like the staff and then go back into it. And that's your flower. So let's do that just 5 times on each side. Again, it's not any different from weapon to weapon. Any of these techniques you can do across a wide range of weapons. That's what makes it easy to move from one to the other. Okay, so let's do just 3 turns on the outside of the wrist, 3 turns on the inside of the wrist. 1, 2, 3. Not as flexible on that side. And then 3 with both. 1, 2, and 3. Switch sides. 1, 2, and 3. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and call it there today. Sorry for the short videos. Hoping to get a bit more cardio in, but I got a tight schedule on a bunch of errands to run today, so hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe. We'll go watch Roger's videos as well. Feel free to tell us what you want on these exercises. Comment any weapons you want covered, any forms you want covered. We'll be glad to consider it and see if we can help you with it. Alright, thank you, and I'll see you next time.